I en trädgård där växterna och sättet att använda dem verkligen är dess unique selling proposition är Great Dixter i engelska Sussex, skapad under 50 år av den engelska trädgårdsguren Christopher Lloyd. På Great Dixter där är verkligen fiket inte mycket att skryta med, men växterna, rabatterna, perennerna, sättet att använda växter och kombinera dem, de formklippta idegranarna, och så plantskolan. Man kan gå timme efter timme efter timme på Great Dixter och aldrig tröttna. Christopher Lloyd, han gick bort 2006. Nu är det upp till trädgårdsmästaren Fergus Garrett att se till så att Great Dixter fortsätter att behålla sin själ.
Our main open season is April till the end of October. And we get repeat visitors. So when a visitor comes in April, they want to see something good in that border, but when they come again in May, June, that border still looks good. When they come again in July, August, that border looks good. Right the way through to October, so that they know that something exciting is going on. This is what it looks like in March. This is after we've gone from one end to the other and we've cleaned that border up. From March into April, the border changes like that. The forget-me-nots come, the tulips are in flower, and then from April to end of May, the border changes like that. From the end of May to the end of June, the border changes again. From June to July, the border changes again. And now it gets difficult to keep that colour going. But by clever planting, you can do it. So July to August, the colour is still there. August to September, the colour is still there. And then you end the season in a crescendo of colour, and this photograph was taken on the 23rd of October. Now, different climates have different seasons, but within those seasons, you can still have borders that look good for a long, long period. So rather than it just looking good in June and July, and then going flat, you can have something that looks good in May, June, July, August into September. And tell the visitor that as well, so that they can vary the time they visit. And every time they visit from the plant shop, they can buy a different plant that looks good in that border. So it benefits the commercial aspect of it as well. So how do we do this? You don't just do it by doing one thing. You do a number of things to achieve this long season. One of the things you do is that you favour plants that have got a long season. So something like this Cornus alba elegantissima has red stems in the winter, but in the summer, it has wonderful variegated foliage. And that foliage looks good throughout the summer. And you mix it in with all sorts of things. This is a bedding display that we did at the front with the Cornus, with oranges and yellows and burgundies and mauves. That was one year, and then the following year we did that. Changed the colour completely. So the visitor that came the previous year then was suddenly amazed by a complete change. And the next year it will change. And the year after it will change. And we will never repeat that combination in the same place. So it remains a dynamic garden. So the Cornus alba elegantissima is important for a long season. And so is something like Cotyneaster horizontalis. Because here it is in berry after it's finished flowering. Here it is with its autumn colour. Here it is with its winter structure. So choosing plants with a long season is very, very important in creating a garden that has a long season. Helleborus foetidus. It's a common plant for us, but it's a terrific plant because it has evergreen leaves. It flowers when a lot of the other herbaceous plants in the border aren't flowering. And that hellebore is there in the long border, sitting amongst lots of plants. There are heleniums there are salvias there are rudbeckias there are helianthus there. In fact, that space in the summer turns into that. And the hellebore sits very nicely underneath all that vegetation, waiting for you to cut that vegetation down, or for the frost, the cold weather, to cut that vegetation down before it bounces back again. So long season plants are important. Also important in creating a long season garden is thinking about foliage and structure, so that your eye is made to work, that it doesn't always think colour, colour, colour. So you have interesting shapes. So even if you visit it in the winter, your eye is focusing on those different shapes. Here we've got a combination of a verbascum underneath the phlomis. And you're not waiting for the verbascum to flower or for the phlomis to flower, for that combination to look good. It already looks good as a foliage combination because of the contrast in shapes between the two plants. The colors are similar, the textures are similar. So it's just a case of carefully planting the right plants in the right place and choosing their neighbors very carefully. And if you look at that border in the winter, this is what I mean. The bare bones, the skeletons of it are interesting. From the ilex to the phlomis, to the linicera, to the laurus, to the pinus mugo, to the libertia, to the Miscanthus sinensis silver feather. And to that you add a layer for spring, a layer for summer, a layer for autumn, and it becomes something very, very rich. This is the early summer layer. So your eye is made to work through those undulations. And if you turn that into a black and white picture, it would still be affected because of the good shapes that are in there. As well as that, you've got to think about getting plants to share the same space so that they live together in the same space, but they do it at different times of the year. So the snowdrop here is underneath a fern. So there's winter interest, and in the summer, the fern takes over. The snowdrop is dormant underneath it. Now, that's just two plants living together, but often you can get three plants living together, but you have to choose them carefully. It's called succession planting, and this is something that we are very, very good at, and we've written the book on it. And it's about getting all these different layers in your garden. And if you think it's too labor-intensive and you can't do that, why is it labor-intensive? Other than the initial planting of that snowdrop underneath the fern, there's no extra labor involved. The snowdrop comes up, melts underground, the fern comes up, takes over from it. And you can do it with one snowdrop underneath one fern, or you can do it with 500 snowdrops under 500 perennials. Here we've got a snowdrop Galanthus atkinsii with Carex elata aurea. There are hostas here, Rogersias, euphorbias, and this is what it looks like in February, and this is what it looks like in the summer, that same area. So that sort of planting is very important. And if you don't like snowdrops or can't grow snowdrops, you can do it with crocus, you can do it with little daffodils, you can do it with scilla. This is Scilla bithynica. And this is what that corner of that garden looks like now. And in the summer, it looks like that, with the ferns that have taken over it. So you do it, it's throughout the year, and you add layer after layer by putting permanent plants together. But you also want to play around with temporary plants, with bedding plants. And by bedding plants, I don't mean short, dumpy little marigolds. You want to have plants like this that are natural, that fit in. This is Campanula patula here, and we could easily thread it through a border like that to give it more impact. And here it is amongst agapanthus and crocosmias. So May, June into July, the campanula is flowering. September, the agapanthus and the crocosmias flower in that same place. So just fitting those different layers in is very important. So it's understanding your plants, and every single gardener on the place must understand their plants, so that your border goes from this to that, in a way where the plants live happily together. And it's very, very important that the garden looks good from spring into summer, into autumn, and with us, into winter as well, that it has something to offer the visitor. And it's very, very important to focus. So you don't want to grab a plant like this and say, what shall I put with it? I'll put a snowdrop with it. You mustn't think of it that way. You must think, well, with this Gnifophia, I must put a Helianthus with it to show it off, an Artemisia in front of it, a Eupatorium, a Rudbeckia herbstoner, Helianthus capnox star, Cotoneaster, and form the picture first, and then think, I'll add a layer of snowdrops, I'll add a layer of Myosotis, I'll allow Mecanopsis cambrica to seed into there, I'll allow Verbena bonariensis to seed into there, maybe a climber over the top of that, maybe a pocket for bedding, and stretch the seasons in a very, very natural way. And you mustn't ever underestimate the value of these sort of things in a garden, because these are not bold, colourful plants, but they are the final layer in any garden. And it's the mix of the two that make it very, very special. And after all, we are talking about places that are colourful, are exciting, that change, but we are talking about places that have spirit and atmosphere. And you mustn't forget that. And that spirit and atmosphere is as a result of, at Dixter, the 15th century manor house with the Lutyens design, those wonderful hedges, the rare plants as rubbing shoulders with the common plants, the colourful plant combinations, the meadows. But they're also as a result of the people, as Alan said. People are very, very important. The owners, the gardeners, the people who play a part in that, the volunteers. And the mix of all of those makes these places special. And you must never, ever get away from your core values. Thank you very much.